On June 1, 2025, the world was shocked by Ukraine's success in carrying out a massive drone attack on strategic facilities of the Russian Air Force. The operation, dubbed Spider Web, destroyed large Russian bombers such as the Tu-95MS and Tu-22M3. In fact, these aircraft have not been produced since the 1990s. So losses like this certainly have a major impact on Russia's strategic air power. This is where the question begins to arise: will Russia replace these bombers with the PAK-DA program? For the Russian Ministry of Defense, the destruction of these old bombers is a harsh reminder of how fragile the dependence on the Soviet legacy fleet is. The Tu-95MS with its most turboprop design may have extraordinary range, but it does not have the stealth capabilities needed to face the modern battlefield. Likewise with the Tu-22M3, a tactical supersonic bomber that is now also increasingly vulnerable to enemy air defense systems. As Russia looks back into its inventory, there is only one program that can be relied upon to immediately fill this gap: the Tu-160M, a modernized variant of the Soviet-era supersonic strategic bomber. The program was actually revived in 2015 with the aim of reproducing the legendary aircraft, once nicknamed Blackjack by NATO. Production is carried out at the Kazan aircraft plant, and a number of new units have indeed joined the Russian Air Force. But the Tu-160M production process is not fast. High costs, technical complexity, and the limitations of the post-Soviet industry have slowed production of the aircraft. Even with the losses incurred on June 1st, the need for a replacement for the Tu-95MS is now even more urgent. It is at this point that attention is starting to shift to a more ambitious future project, the PAK-DA. PAK-DA itself is an abbreviation for NYI Aviationy Complex Dalny Aviatsy Perspective, or Future Long-Range Aviation Complex. This is a new generation Russian bomber project designed with stealth concepts, intercontinental range, and next-generation weapons capabilities. This project has actually been initiated since the early 2010s, and in 2019 the design was reportedly finalized. Its new engine developed under the East Delhi RF program. Reportedly, bench tests will begin in 2022. Even in June 2021, sources from the Russian defense industry said that an advanced electronic warfare-based self-defense system was being developed specifically for the PAK-DA to protect aircraft from all types of threats, be it radar, optics, or missiles. With all its sophistication, the PAK-DA is not only seen as a replacement for the Tu-95 or Tu-160, but also as a generational leap into a new era of strategic bombers. Unfortunately, like many other Russian defense projects, the realization of the PAK-DA has experienced quite serious delays. The delay in the PAK-DA project is actually not surprising if we look at the modern history of the Russian military aviation industry. The Su-57 stealth fighter jet project, for example. It should have been active since 2010, but in reality the fighter jet only really entered combat service in 2020 or 10 years later. The initial target of 200 units by 2025 also seems unrealized, considering that only around 40 units are currently active. In addition, there is also the PAK-DA project, a new generation interceptor aircraft that is said to replace the Mi-31. However, it also suffered a similar fate. Until now, there has been no flying prototype known to the public, and there are even suspicions that instead of building a new platform, Russia will choose to make a variant of the Su-57 interceptor for cost efficiency. So it is not surprising that PAK-DA, which was initially targeted to enter active service in 2027, is now estimated to only be active towards the end of the 2030s. But will this change after the June 1st attack? The Ukrainian drone attack on a strategic Russian bomber base is certainly not just a physical loss. This is a message. Even Russia's strategic nuclear weapons distributed through long-range bombers are no longer safe from enemy attacks that now utilize cheap but effective technology. Losing aircraft such as the Tu-95MS would indeed be very detrimental. But who knows, it might actually be the impetus that makes the Russian Ministry of Defense consider accelerating the development of PAK-DA. As the United States launches the B-21 Raider, their new stealth bomber, and China is preparing the H-20. Of course, Russia's lag is becoming more apparent. The existing Tu-160M is still very strong. It can even be said to be one of the most dangerous bombers today. However, in a world where air defense missiles are increasingly sophisticated, stealth is the key to survival. Without it, even the fastest aircraft can be shot down before completing its mission. PAK-DA itself is actually not only designed to be invisible to radar, but also to operate advanced weapons systems such as hypersonic cruise missiles, precision-guided bombers, and maybe even escort drones. It is also designed to be efficient in operational costs, something that is badly needed by Russia, which is facing economic pressure and long-term conflict. In addition, geopolitical pressure from NATO continues to increase, and U.S. initiatives such as the Golden Dome program, a layered defense system against missile and air attacks, certainly add to the urgency of the presence of a new generation of bombers capable of infiltrating deep into enemy territory without being detected. Russia seems to realize that dependence on old technology will only make them lag behind. Therefore, accelerating the PAK-DA program is no longer a matter of choice, but a strategic necessity. Although still far from operational, the technology developed for the PAK-DA does not have to wait until the aircraft is completed. There is a good chance that the electronic warfare systems, avionics, or even the design developed for the PAK-DA will be integrated first into the latest Tu-160M variant. This step makes sense. While waiting for the PAK-DA to be ready, Russia can still strengthen its strategic bomber fleet by updating existing platforms. This also gives engineers extra time to refine the PAK-DA design without having to rush. So, the attack on June 1st was not just an old aircraft, it was a target for Russia's belief that they can still rely on the legacy of the Soviet era to maintain their strategic superiority. The world has changed. Enemies can now strike deep into Russian territory with cheap, high-precision drone technology. In such a world, big, slow, non-stealthy bombers are easy targets. If the PAK-DA is indeed realized, it will certainly be Russia's answer to that challenge. But time is very limited, with the United States and China already taking the lead and military and economic pressures increasing. The question is no longer whether PAK-DA will be developed, but how quickly Russia can make it happen. Amidst the uncertainty, one thing seems increasingly clear: the future of Russia's strategic air force can no longer be supported by the past. They must move forward or be left behind by Germany. Yeah.